This video is brought to you by Patreon. Patreon! Swiss milk chocolate with honey and almond nougat. Anna Sewell was ill most of her life. Born in 1820, the daughter of a children's book author, she permanently hurt her ankle at the age of 14, necessitating the use of crutches for the rest of her life. Illness was present throughout all of her adulthood, her parents moving around to find climates that made their daughter comfortable. As she entered her 50s, she was bedridden and still relied on her parents for assistance. But beginning in 1871, she took on the challenge of writing a book. With her limited mobility, Sewell had relied on horses and horse-drawn carriages and became concerned with the mishandling and mistreatment of such beautiful animals. This inspired a book from the point of view of a horse named Black Beauty, telling the story of his life from childhood to pulling cabs in London to living freely in the countryside. Each chapter was an anecdote of Beauty's life, encounters with people who either mistreat horses or fight against such mistreatment, with a strong emphasis on justice against abuse and helping others. Do you know why this world is as bad as it is? No, said the other. Then I'll tell you. It is because people think only about their own business and won't trouble themselves to stand up for the oppressed, nor bring the wrongdoer to light. I never see a wicked thing like this without doing what I can, and many a master has thanked me for letting him know how his horses have been used. I wish there were more gentlemen like you, sir, said Jerry, for they are wanted badly enough in this city. It took Sewell 6 years to finish the book, having to dictate it to her mother. She eventually sold the manuscript, and the book was published in November of 1877. Sewell passed away 5 months later, at the age of 58. She would never learn the impact her work would have. Not only did Black Beauty become one of the best-selling books ever, but it had a measurable impact towards animal welfare. For example, the bearing rein, a piece of horse tack designed to painfully keep a horse's face in the upright position. The book detailed how painful and pointless these things were. And in time, the bearing rein was abolished in Victorian England. In the literary scene, the book is often cited as the progenitor of the pony book genre, stories about relationships between young people and horses, more often than not aimed at a young female demographic. As we entered the 20th century, Black Beauty was adapted to film numerous times, though surprisingly Britain, the book's country of origin, didn't make a Black Beauty film until 1971. This film, directed by James Hill, was a very loose adaptation, which saw the horse join the circus and serve as a military horse, because that's a lot more cinematic than pulling a cab. Despite the liberties taken, the film reviewed well. Now, I have no evidence of a direct correlation, but it's not hard to imagine a television studio taking inspiration from the film's success and producing a Black Beauty TV show. Maybe it didn't happen like that, but regardless, in September of 1972, ITV premiered The Adventures of Black Beauty.
Somebody help me. Beauty.
This show, which ran for 2 series at 52 episodes, has even less to do with the source material than the 1971 movie, but at least it's upfront about that, the title card reading, with acknowledgement to the classic by Anna Sewell, not based on the book. This is the story of the Gordon family. Dr. James Gordon has just recently moved to the English countryside to open up a practice. With him are his 2 children, Vicky and Kevin, and their housekeeper, Amy. Nearby, a small horse dealer comes across a seemingly untamable black horse, which breaks out of the stables and escapes into the woods, where he's discovered by an exploring Vicky.
Stay here, boy. Don't be afraid. You'll be safe with us, boy. Your poor eye.
Vicky's gentleness leaves an impression on the horse, and he follows her back to her new home. The abusive horse dealers want the animal back, and there's a lot of tension until Dr. Gordon comes in and helps one of the men in his poor health. Grateful, they let the family keep the horse, and Vicky gives her new best friend a name.
Jet? Swift?
No, they're not right.
Blackbird.
Ebony?
Lightning.
Something that describes him. Well, he's black. And he's very beautiful. Black Beauty.
From that day forward, the Gordon family and Black Beauty would live a life full of adventure, discovering plots and helping those in need. Unlike a lot of adaptations of the book, Black Beauty isn't given any kind of voice. There's no narration, we're never privy to his thoughts, so the horse is a lot less anthropomorphized here. Less of a point of view character and more of a clever pet in a similar vein to Lassie and Flipper. The main character is really Vicky, a strong-willed young woman played by Judy Boker, best known today for playing Andromeda in 1981's Clash of the Titans. Vicky's a really good character, a bit naive and stubborn, but brave, jumping in to help those less fortunate, be they animals or people.
Is that where you're running away from? No, miss, no. They got us a job, you see. Biddle's farm, over the hill there. A job? Slavery is what it's like, miss. Up at 6, working until 8 at night, 9 sometimes, beaten if we sit down for 10 minutes. Awful, isn't it, Sammy? That's terrible. It isn't our fault our parents died, is it?
We haven't done anything wrong.
You will help us, won't you, miss? Please, miss?
Many of these injustices involved issues of exploitation in 19th century on the cusp of the Industrial Revolution England. An old pack horse used in a coal mine is going to be sold to a butcher, and Vicky helps a young boy smuggle the poor animal to safety. Vicky witnesses an old-fashioned pistol duel and rescues the wounded man who lost, but the other party starts to terrorize the Gordon family. A neighboring farm is in danger of exploitative lenders, so to pay off their debts, Vicky and friends go in search for a mysterious treasure that was supposedly buried in the area. Also, there's a clown episode. What is it with these outdoor adventure shows always having clown episodes? Vicky was the show's adventurous spirit, but its moral center came from her father, Dr. Gordon, played by a Hammer Films mainstay, William Lucas.
What are you doing?
Preparing vaccine, or trying to. You see, this disease is caused by millions of bacteria, bacilli, an invisible army of killers. But if you can isolate them, then inject them back into their victims, they fight their own disease, and I think we've done it.
While his children are off having adventures and getting too excited about things, it's Dr. Gordon that keeps a level head, espousing lessons and stepping in to give an authoritative presence. While a proper human doctor by trade, the amount of time animals are in danger in this show has him caring for innocent wildlife as much as people.
Will he be all right, Doctor?
Well, he won't chase after any more hares.
You mean he won't be able to run anymore?
He's lucky he didn't lose his leg altogether.
Man, that beard, that stature, that bedside manner. Dr. Gordon is one handsome dad. Oh yeah. Bet you wish he was your dad. He'd pick you up, tuck you in the bed. The housekeeper Amy was played by Charlotte Mitchell, who is also a poet. Amy was often exasperated by all the adventures going on, but she was warm and loving and rounded the cast out nicely. Oh, and there's Kevin, played by Roderick Shaw. Almost forgot about Kevin, because the show forgets about Kevin all the time. He rarely factors into the plots during Series 1, and there are large swaths of episodes where he just doesn't show up. The Adventures of Black Beauty was produced by London Weekend Television, an ITV regional franchise that shared airtimes with Thames Television, which you may remember as the producers of The Tomorrow People. LWT was founded in 1968 and had been struggling right out of the gate. Worker disputes resulted in ITV franchises being overstaffed and underpaid, and within 15 seconds of LWT's opening night, the screen went black as technicians went on strike. Ratings were low, there was infighting among board members, media mogul Rupert Murdoch even stepped in to take over for a hot minute. Things finally settled down by 1971, but they wouldn't say no to a big television hit, so LWT began producing their Black Beauty show. This was a fairly big production, and they did not want to screw it up, so the creative team behind The Adventures of Black Beauty is full of British television veterans. Executive producer Paul Knight had anthology shows before this, such as Half Hour Story and Tales of Unease. Producer Sidney Cole had worked on action-adventure shows like The Adventures of Robin Hood, Secret Agent, and Man in a Suitcase. The show's head writer and creative lead was Ted Willis, already a 20-year veteran of film, television, and stage, best known for the long-running police drama Dixon on Dock Green, which began in 1955 and ended in 1976, 2 years after The Adventures of Black Beauty ended. He was joined in the writing room by Richard Carpenter, who had just gotten off of another LWT program called Catweasel, about a wizard who time travels to modern day, and David Butler, who had written 33 episodes of the medical soap opera Emergency Ward 10. He would later be nominated for an Academy Award for adapted screenplay for the film Voyage of the Damned. I realize this is just turning into me reading off IMDb credits, but this is some of the most experienced, top-tier industrial talent we've come across so far on Knacks. Series composer Dennis King was formerly a member of a late 50s pop band called the King Brothers. The show's main theme, titled Galloping Home, won an Ivor Novello Award. In fact, it's become something of King's signature song.
I was desperate to get into writing music for television, having kind of finished a career as a pop performer, I suppose you want to call it. And my music publisher heard that there was a new series being made, or in the process of being made, at London Weekend Television, called The Adventures of Black Beauty. And I said, well, what do they want? He said, well, I've got the brief here. It said, strong outdoor theme a la the Virginian, but not cowboy and not American, good, and not less than 35 seconds. So I thought, oh yeah, easy peasy. So I figured it needed quite a lot of movement within the orchestration, and the theme should be sort of big and soaring and big high notes and all that sort of thing. Anyway, I fiddled at the piano, and I came up with the melody. Two things kind of inspired me, if you like. The first being the title, Black Beauty, and that I thought, well, that should be, although there's no lyric to it, that should kind of indicate where the title comes, right at the beginning of the tune. So I came up with this thing, like, da da da, I thought, Black Beauty.
Cinematography was given to Kenneth Higgins, who had been nominated for a Cinematography Academy Award for the 1966 film Georgie Girl. There's a lot more camera movement in this show than you usually see in television. Not just pans or zooms, but tracking shots. And look at this crane shot. Majestic. Compared to the economical but not flashy work of Adventures in Rainbow Country and Matt and Jenny, and the flatness of The Tomorrow People needed for its special effects, The Adventures of Black Beauty is pretty cinematic. 4 horses were used through the show's run. The main one was Tramp, with Ebony, Fury, and Jet brought in to perform specific stunts, their faces made up to match Tramp's white spot. While the animal handling on this show wasn't publicly documented, there's nothing on screen that would indicate animal abuse, and in fact, television critic and big-time animal rights activist Cleveland Amori gave the show his endorsement in his TV guide review. If anybody would catch wind of abuse towards these horses, it'd be this guy. This was a high-quality program, and it paid off for LWT by being a massive hit, not just in Britain, but around the world, airing in 40 different countries, including the United States. I'm not even talking about Nickelodeon yet. It actually first aired in the States on certain NBC affiliates in 1973. The Writers Guild of Great Britain gave it an award for Best Children's Drama, and while it ended after only 2 series, it would be rerun for nearly 2 decades. Several books, both novelizations of episodes and original stories, were published, including a yearly Black Beauty annual, and a Black Beauty comic book story was featured in ITV's children's magazine, Lookin'. The Adventures of Black Beauty was a pretty big deal. So let's dig a little deeper into how the show worked. While a straightforward program on the surface, it does have a few interesting quirks when you examine it. First off, there's almost no continuity to speak of. Sure, episodic television isn't unusual, but it goes beyond just you can watch episodes in any order. The Gordon family has a revolving door of old friends, a bunch of characters that the show treats as having been around forever, other kids to join Vicky on her adventures, but they don't really get proper introductions. Like, in one episode, there's just a cowboy hanging around. Where did this guy come from? Why does he know the Gordons? What does he have to do with anything? Who knows? It's like the Gordon family was infected by those alien parasites from Rick and Morty. The geography is undefined. It's all standalone houses and buildings that just happen to be 20 minutes of horseback riding from the Gordon estate. The production did a great job finding scenic outdoor landscapes and a number of period-appropriate structures to film in and around. Every place the show goes to feels unique and interesting, but you couldn't possibly map it. How many empty quarries and abandoned mansions can you have in 1 square mile? Cities and townships almost never factor in, and the few times an episode does include characters in the city, it's usually just tight close-ups of one storefront because, they can't afford a big city, and the show isn't even interested in city drama. It would much rather roam the fields and forests. The weather always perfect, except for the dramatic thunderstorm. Rural England feels less like a real place and more like the 100-acre woods.
Because we found a place, a farm down at Rickmansworth, which is only 18 miles out of London, which was the most admirable location you could imagine because it was very easy to get to from London. It was only about 3 miles from Denham Laboratories where we were processing. The catering firm we used had its headquarters in Rickmansworth. The house we used, the small house we used, was of the right period, a small Victorian house, which we could use both to film in and as offices. And we had I don't know what the actual acreage was, a vast amount of countryside, from some points of which you had a 360-degree view of countryside and nothing else.
Oh, it was very nice because it was all out in the open air and no studio stuff at all. We just rented a farm, shot the interiors in the farm and the exteriors outside.
It was very hard work for all of us. It was long hours, but it was one of those happy events where the main cast really were like family. We all got on very well, with the crew too, and so it was lovely. They're mostly happy memories, apart from shivering in some cotton frock in February with a bunch of plastic daffodils trying to pretend it was summer. The show really is a storybook brought to life, not in the sense of being a direct adaptation of a storybook, but in having an idyllic, slightly heightened reality from a child's perspective. Clearly stated morals from a parent figure, a pet that seems more intelligent than it should be, exaggerated characters coming and going, and an endless supply of foppish, British aristocratic villains of various degrees of camp. My favorite of which is this guy, who's trying to frame Dr. Gordon for arson because Gordon got him sent to prison for malpractice, and he is a delight.
Oh, yes. When our friend Skinner gives his evidence, he'll be convicted. It'll be the end of Gordon's career as a doctor. Savage creature, isn't he?
Well, go to the police.
Oh, I know you will, Miss Gordon, and you'll tell them such an elaborate fairy tale, all about a horse that looked like Black Beauty and a man who impersonated your father.
I love this guy. It's really not hard to see why Nickelodeon would be drawn to this show. It slotted in nicely with the outdoor adventure shows of Adventures in Rainbow Country and Matt and Jenny, while being a television contemporary of The Tomorrow People, while being head and shoulders above those shows in quality. It already had a proven test run in American markets, and speaking of markets, one thing Nickelodeon was still lacking in 1982 was a solid girl show. That is, of course, very reductive. Girls can enjoy shows aimed towards boys and vice versa. But this was a time when Nickelodeon was being run by the guy who was in charge of marketing for Barbie. Simplified takes on demographics was kind of Cy Schneider's thing, and there wasn't a single show on Nickelodeon that you could point to and say, this is what we offer to young girls. Adventures in Rainbow Country literally put its 2 reoccurring female characters in the kitchen. The 2 titular kids from Matt and Jenny were mostly luggage, while 2 strapping adult men had all the adventures. The Tomorrow People damseled their girls all the time. You Can't Do That on Television had a girl host and a lot of girl performers, which is great, but then gave them a bunch of gross fat-shaming jokes. The strongest female presence Nickelodeon had in its first 3 years was probably Josie from By the Way. But here comes a show with a great female protagonist that's in the pony fiction genre that's commonly associated with a female audience, that's of high quality and can be justified as part of your channel's edutainment mission because it's tied to a famous work of literature. Slam dunk. Well, for Series 1 anyway. Series 2 of The Adventures of Black Beauty is another matter. Oh, it didn't get bad, it remained a good show, but the transition between Series 1 and Series 2 was very clunky, and the show took a step back in quality. The most dramatic change was Judy Boker leaving. I was in my teens and I thought I'd done everything I could do within that setup. I wanted to do something different. I thought I didn't want this to be the defining part of my career, if you like. This put the show in a really tight spot. So much of Black Beauty's appeal came from Judy Boker's adventurous performance as Vicky. She was the main character. So, what do? Well, you could recast Vicky with another actress, or you could readjust the series so that someone else is the main character and write Vicky out of the show. Neither option is ideal, you're likely to lose fans with the change, but you gotta do something. Amazingly, the people behind the show decided to do both.
Jenny, I just hung up that flower bed, and why can't you learn to go through the gate?
It was a beautiful day. Black Beauty was all saddled and ready for a ride. I had been away at school and had only just come to live with my father in the country, so there was a lot to learn. Maybe I should have stayed with my brother Kevin, but I just couldn't wait. I wanted to go exploring.
This is Jenny, played by Stacey Dorning. Jenny was away at school during the events of Series 1 and has returned home to live with her father, brother, and Black Beauty, which I guess is just her horse now. There isn't a single reference to Vicky from this point forward, no mention that she's away from school, no acknowledgement that she even existed. Moreover, Jenny, an adventurous blonde girl who loves riding horses and justice, isn't really distinct from Vicky. This was a recasting, but then they got cold feet and changed the character's name and gave her an incompatible backstory. Suddenly a recasting became a full-blown retcon. Now, Stacey Dorning is a good enough child actress, but she just doesn't have the screen presence Judy Boker had, and I suspect the production picked up on this as well, because her role is dialed way, way back. There are episodes where Jenny just doesn't show up, and when she is there, she doesn't feel as front and center as Vicky was. Instead, Kevin suddenly gets more screen time, going from being a completely inconsequential character to becoming a secondary main. And then a new character is introduced, Ned Lewis, played by Stephen Farlick.
Oh, thank you.
A bath?
Yes.
What for?
Well, you obviously haven't had one for weeks. You can't get into one of Dr. Gordon's beds like that.
Nobody's making me take no bath.
Ned is a very Dickensian-style orphan and Amy's nephew who comes to live on the Gordon estate, and Dr. Gordon has to teach him to be a proper, upper-class man like he's Eliza Doolittle. This adds some interesting tension to the family dynamic, as Ned doesn't always have the Gordons' best interests at heart, but he soon becomes a loved member of the family. I wouldn't go so far as to say he becomes the show's new main character, but with Jenny's smaller role and Kevin's beefier one, The Adventures of Black Beauty becomes more of a boys' life show than a girl-led adventure. The show also gained a reoccurring antagonist, and with it a stronger sense of continuity. Squire Armstrong, played by Michael Culver, is a snobbish, uptight, upper-class twit who lives on the land that borders Dr. Gordon's farm and often gets pissy whenever Black Beauty's adventures spills onto his property.
You were right, Carter. A two-legged trespasser this time.
He's ill. He's got fever. Look at him.
The boy's right, Squire.
Then get him out of here before any of my animals are infected.
He can't stand Mr. Armstrong.
Well, it's not a disease. He's been eating new leaves.
By heaven, I hope you never have another animal to look after.
Fun fact, Michael Culver's writing double was Vic Armstrong, who was also the stunt double for Harrison Ford in all 3 Indiana Jones movies, George Lazenby in the James Bond film On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and Christopher Reeve in Superman 1 and 2. With a reoccurring antagonist, you can't really defeat him and send him to jail or whatever. He can't have done anything bad enough to justify getting the law involved. Therefore, his continued presence means the stakes are usually lower than what they were in Series 1. Behind the scenes, the show still had mostly the same crew, but 7 new writers were brought in alongside the Willis, Butler, Carpenter power trio. These new writers doing only 1 or 2 episodes apiece, which is probably why Series 2 feels a little less consistent in quality, struggling a bit more to find a new identity for the show. Don't get me wrong, Series 2 of The Adventures of Black Beauty was still a good show. It was still concerned with justice for people and animals alike. But Series 1 was a great show, and this was very clearly a downgrade. The show's legacy was still secure, though. In 1990, a sequel series, The New Adventures of Black Beauty, was produced in New Zealand and continues the story with a now adult Jenny. Dr. Gordon is now older and white-haired, but Black Beauty hasn't aged a day. The sequel series never aired on Nickelodeon, so I won't get too much into it, but nowadays the 2 shows are usually combined when it comes to reruns. The entirety of The Adventures of Black Beauty is on DVD. Perhaps not the best transfers in the world, it's a little muddy, but it's great that a series of such quality is available. On Nickelodeon, The Adventures of Black Beauty had a pretty respectable run from 1982 until 1987, and in terms of just raw technical quality, it might be the best show Nick had during that time. It would be the first of a line of smart pet shows to air on the channel, such as Lassie and Flipper, and Nickelodeon would do their own take on horse adventures with the Dude Ranch sitcom Hey Dude. However, the most direct point of comparison is actually decades later, in 2017, when Nickelodeon aired Ride, a Canadian drama about a girl attending an English equestrian school and befriending a dark horse. Even now, the genre that Anna Sewell created appeals to a young audience. Her work still influencing us. Not bad.
Nick, 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 Nickelodeon. Nick, 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 Nickelodeon.
Next time, Cy Schneider makes a TV show, and the children are bored to tears. Today's shoutout goes to Animals on Screen and Radio, a 1994 reference guide to animal actors in media. Not a lot of info on the show there, just a nice resource to cross-reference. Oh, and of course, Black Beauty by Anna Sewell. For a 140-year-old book, it really holds up. Thank you all for watching. If you like what you've seen, perhaps consider slipping me $1 on Patreon. Every little bit helps my production value and secures my ability to keep doing it. You can also support me by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that bell for notifications, following me on Twitter, or sharing these videos with your friends. And share The Adventures of Black Beauty. It's not only on DVD, it's all over YouTube right now. Check it out. It's a good show.